Welcome to Pushing Beyond the Obvious, the leadership series. Thanks for joining us for people who are live. Thanks for listening to this conversation. If you're listening to this either in the video form or the audio form, I'm super glad to have a dear friend and colleague, Pankaj, with whom we will be speaking today. So welcome to the show, Pankaj.
Thank you, Mukesh. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is a great experience for me as well.
Super. So for people who don't know you, right? So can you just quickly introduce yourself, the body of work that has led you to be here so that people can put everything else that you say in context?
Great question. When I look back, 46, 47 years of existence, God has been very kind to me, very kind. And I'm so lucky to have that kind of variety of exposure, countries, technology, places, people. So I couldn't have asked for more. I come from a very ordinary, humble business family. Actually, I was born in a kind of very crowded, simple village, if I may say. I was a very studious student. I was kind of in board exams, one of those toppers. I was meant to be, mine is a business family, and in India, in North India especially, the red light vehicle or the kind of government vehicle. So government job was that too in the kind of civil services. That was the motto, and my cousin kind of qualified it for the IAS, which is the top of the civil services in India. So I was meant to be an IAS when I was studying. I don't know what went wrong, but I'm not an IAS. I'm in front of you. I'm not in a government office. So, but very interesting journey. I got to study in different cities. So Kanpur, Agra, Mumbai. Got to start my work in Bangalore. Was lucky to work in Hong Kong for 3 years, USA for a couple of years. My kid was born in USA, and then I have been in Singapore for 8 years. From education perspective, I'm kind of supposed to be a supply chain expert, operations expert. That is what the college, the final master's degree they gave me. But for last 22 years, I have been practicing HR. So I have been a great HR. People tell me that I'm a good HR consultant, technology consultant. So fate brings us where we are. And I wish I had, my father wanted me to be civil servant. I wanted to be the finance expert, but where I am, and I have no regrets. Whenever I look back, and God has been kind. God gave me a lot of surprises, but all beautiful and pleasant surprises.
Superb, superb. I don't know whether you know this, but I also come from a business family. The only difference was that I was expected to follow suit and join the business.
Yeah.
And which I tried for a period of time, but then I realized that everyone that was working in the business and the businesses that I was working or serving, they were all very content, very happy doing what they were doing. They didn't want to push forward. They didn't want to grow significantly. And the conversations that I was having with them was like, okay, how much discount can you give me? And what's the offer? And I did not want to be limited in that conversation in my life and spend the entire life talking about offers and discounts. So I decided to join a corporate, and I joined Saint-Gobain class. I've talked about many things that I learned from them. And then God has been kind as to you. So it's been to me. I ended up in SAP for the last 17 and a half years. And I did study BSc. My bachelor's was in applied sciences with maths, physics, and chemistry as major. And I'm doing nothing related to that in my career ever. So yeah, that's a few similarities that I can see already. So let me flip the question a little bit more. So if someone were to ask you to fill this blanks, if you really, really knew me, you would know that and the blank. How would you answer that question?
People outside of work, they'll call me witty, and then I don't know how, but I'm known for my one-line punches outside of work. I'm not yet being so successful, having those one-line punches at work. So maybe I think I'm not that creative, but I mean, at family, at my wife, my kid, my near and dear ones, I love being with them, and it's very spontaneous. So witty, funny, jovial, if you may say. That is what people around see me. People at work, they will call me hands-on. I think a sincere, a keen learner, always learner. But at work, I'm a totally different. I'm for work and at home, I don't know how, but I don't speak so much at home. My wife complains that I'm a very silent person at home.
That's complaint that every wife has of her husband. Not necessarily just with you.
Yeah. So, I mean, then I have to answer this question in two parts, outside of work and then at work. So at work, hands-on, sincere, and at home, jovial, lovely person, and then witty and one-line punches. I love pulling them.
So, in fact, last week I spoke to Atul Tuli. He's the managing director for SAP in Indo-China region, and he also told the same thing that when I asked him if someone really knew him, they would know that, and he said, "Funny, you're also saying the same." And I've seen this with many people. They are very different, including maybe to an extent me as well. That they're very different when they are at work, and they're very different when they are at home with their loved ones. And sometimes I feel, is that by design that you decide that you will keep these two personality of yours separate, or is that by default that the moment people enter the workforce, enter the office, something shifts inside of us, and automatically we become a different person because the organization expects you to behave in a certain way, to do some things, to not do some things. So what do you think is happening, at least with you, if forget about everyone else?
Very interesting question. And maybe I'm not the team lead at home, right? I'm being led. And then maybe I'm leading from the back there. And then my wife is the leader at home and my kid is the leader back home. They decide the agenda and they decide what to do. So I can make fun of them, and then I'm making fun at myself as well. So yeah, I can afford to be a different person because maybe I don't have burden of leadership there. And then I'm true, authentic, crazy, busy, lazy person in my PJs there. So I don't know. Good question. I never thought about it. Maybe it's the burden of leadership, burden of the outcomes, which you are not so much at home.
So at home, you're not driving an outcome, right? So
yes, absolutely. Yeah, there is no agenda, right? You're not trying to conclude things. You're not trying to have a follow-up, an action plan there. You're just you are following someone else and someone else creates the action plans for you, right? So yeah, it's a different world.
Yeah, that gives me a clean segue into my next question, which was, you spoke about the burden of leadership, right? So what do you think leadership is actually about? I mean, you've been a manager. I mean, you've managed teams worth 20 people, 10 people, 30 people, 70 people. So what is leadership? What do you think leadership is all about? Or the burden of leadership all about, as you say?
I think, yeah, I don't call it burden. I really enjoy the thinking big part. I mean, for me, leadership about thinking big, defining a vision, or a slightly longer term goal. I don't think leadership can be defined. Managers you can define in the short term, in 6 to 9 months time, that how are they delivering on the KPIs they were assigned. But leaders are slightly longer term. You define a bigger vision for the team, for the business, and you move people to achieve that vision and then that big picture you had in mind. So for me, leadership about thinking big and finding out what changes you want and leading those changes and being there yourself first with your customers and with your team members, reaching there together. That is what the leadership is for me.
Interesting. So a couple of days back, I had shared a hand-drawn picture that I had drawn maybe a couple of years back. If you imagine the speed dial in your car,
Mhm.
right? 0 to 60 to 120 to 240. Um, what I had thought was that, um, the time when you start the journey, right, until you hit the highway, where you decide the destination where you're going, and till the time you are hitting the highway is the leadership zone, which means that you set the intention, you know where you are going, you try to fix things. There are a lot of uncertainties, you kind of overcome them, and all of that until the time you have everything settled and you are on the highway where you can actually take off.
Mhm.
And from that point, so which is maybe 0 to 70 or 60 in terms of speed, and 70 to 120 or 140, or even if you are in Germany or in the US, even 160 is the management zone, where everything is set. All you need to do is make sure that you're driving execution,
Yeah.
you're driving fast, without having to think much about where you're going, because that is already set by the leaders. And anything beyond that is a risky zone, because if you go too fast, and you are with your blinders on, which means that you might lose sight of what's happening around you. You might lose sight of what's happening beside you, in your industry, in adjacent industries, and kind of the chances of disruption is much higher. So leadership zone, management zone, and the risky zone. And I think what you said in terms of vision, in terms of being there for your people, identifying some of the roadblocks, and as a leader, probably remove those roadblocks. Sounds very similar to what I was thinking when I created the chart. So now the question, then follow-up question is, how does one create that vision? And is that in a large organization, let's say, for example, SAP or any other large organization, the vision is set at the leadership level, right? Which is CEO level, or the CDO or the CTO level. And if you are maybe 2 levels down or 3 levels down, the amount of flexibility that you have as a leader is very restricted, because you cannot say, okay, what the CEO has decided is wrong, and I will drive my own vision. So given that those are the constraints, how does one still be a leader and create that vision for your team and for the work that you are doing? And how do you communicate that?
So I think you talked about the flexibility, and there is a lot of flexibility. So while the leadership at top defines the what part, but we have to achieve, and then we can't refuse that, and then you can't have your own goals. There has to be goal alignment. And coming from the HR software, HR technology background, the goal alignment, the goal cascading is so important. So they tell you what to achieve. But they leave a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility for you to define how to achieve it. And that is where the leadership comes. And this how part varies from team to team, varies from country to country, varies from leader to leader. Every leader has their own strengths and weaknesses, and every leader has their own muscles to kind of maneuver that journey. So as you rightly said, we all have to go certain destination, but which route you take, where do you take breaks, how fast do you drive, it's all up to you. And that is where the flexibility is, and that is where the beauty of this leadership lies. So what's your way, what's your style? And it's not only your individual style, what's the team's collective style? And I have the team which is spread across 6 countries in Southeast Asia, and I have been lucky to have a large team. I was talking about in my previous company, I had a team of 70 people, very young people, very young people. And now I have a team of 15, 16 people, and 3 in academy right now. And I have the kind of team of which is 20 years plus experience, and few people getting ready who are fresh out of college and fresh out of academy. So wide variety of experience. And then there are different incentives, different ways these people get motivated and can. So these are the different flexibilities you have to exercise to motivate them to reach together a defined destination. And that is where the leadership comes in, that how do you motivate these individuals the way they want to be motivated? There is no single magic, right? So there is no one rule which applies to all. So you have to personalize this way of managing people. Same applies to the customers as well. So I love my customer facing part. And I keep telling to you that there are certain countries where I'm able to achieve a very mature customer community, and where I have come to the point where customers are helping customers. That is the aha moment. That is the kind of when I feel that I have arrived in my professional journey. And then I come from a very strong services background, and services background is a lot about advisory and consulting. So and to a certain point, when I'm in customer success role, how do you define the customer success? The customer success, the technical ways or the SAP ways of the customer success is the renewal, is the upsell, cross-sell. The way I extend this customer success is how my customers are helping each other. How much are they learning so that they can use my software in a better way? And how do they learn it? I mean, how can I make this learning part of fun for them? And it's a fun, then they will use it more. And how can I gamify it? How can I help? How can I make them compete with each other in a very healthy way so that they feel motivated? And how can I set up these peer experts? That is undefined job description for me. And then when SAP leaders tell me at the CDO and CTO level, they just tell me, Pankaj, this is your renewal rate, this is your booking number, but they just don't tell me that how would you create the customer community? How would you kind of create the peers within my team so that they can help each other? I cannot be there when you have a team of 20 people, you cannot be the mentor anymore, right? So how can you really let these people be very productive and sufficient by themselves? So that is the part of the kind of leadership. And I totally love that part of the kind of journey.
So let's double click on that. You spoke that you have people across 6 countries, and all countries are very different. The cultures are different, the expectations are different, their motivations are different. You also told that you have right from freshers, or even before that, students who are working as interns. You have freshers, and you have people who have 20 years of experience. So very, very varied in terms of both experience as well as cultures. So number one, you said you need to personalize how you engage with them. So how do you do that? Number one. And number two, the challenge with that is also the fact that you cannot personalize it too much, because then you have to bring everyone back as well, right? Focusing on in the same direction. So while you personalize, how do you also make sure that everyone is aligned in terms of where we are going? If you can use 1 or 2 examples without naming names, that will be great as well. But even if you don't, how do you do this?
I think job satisfaction varies from age to age, from person to person, from country to country. For certain people, job satisfaction is having a lot of authority and a lot of control and a lot of coverage. And certain people, they say, Pankaj, I feel satisfied when I have a portfolio of, say, 20 million euro, and that is how they measure success. For few people, the success is how much are they learning, and not how much euro portfolio are they covering. Are they learning fast enough? Are they meeting enough customers? Are they meeting interesting people? Interesting people is something which came out. So I think for few people, so I think that is where I try to sit down with each of my team members at least once in a month. And listening has been my recent leadership learning. Being an Indian, we speak a lot and we listen less. I realized that mistake. And that was the turning point when I did my SAP Masters program. So SAP Masters program made me reflect a lot. And I'm so thankful to my boss who kind of recommended me for this SAP Masters program. It's a senior leaders program where my teacher, my professor always asked me that take the challenge. I mean, give me the challenge, and every time say, put yourself at the center of inquiry. Write down, reflect, spend time with yourself, find out what is happening, where you want to be, what is going wrong. So I think that reflection part helped me listen better. I used to be a very strong mentor where I used to tell people, and which is changing from telling to listening and then talking now. So we are more in the conversation way of kind of leadership rather than telling way of leadership. So yeah, coming back to your question, how do I create that varying experience? I think it is up to the person for me to define, I mean, for them to define that what is the satisfaction for them, where they see themselves in 6 months, 1 year, and 5 years down the line, and personalize their development and career journey. And I think that is the another part of the leadership, especially the senior leaders. They are not afraid of letting these people grow beyond themselves. And they should be comfortable about these people leaving the team and going outside and doing something. So I think that is where the multiplier way of leadership comes. So I'm very comfortable and I feel very good that I have developed people who have grown beyond me and who have taken a very good position there. And many of the team members in my team, they are on a fast track development journey. And then I'm seeing to it that they get the mentors and coaches and kind of, the sponsors outside of team. So I think to your question, defining the success for each of these team members, personalizing their experiences, and listening continuously, because many times these goals are reached very quickly and they want more. They want more. So you cannot say, okay, I'll do this goal setting and review once in a year or once in 3 years. These goals and experiences keep changing every 3 months.
Interesting. So if I understood correctly, what you're saying is that it is not enough to do this once, maybe once a year or something. Ongoing communication, ongoing exploration and reflection about what drives people, what motivates people, and tailoring what you want them to do, or aligning what you want to do with them and what they want to achieve in life together, some way, find a common ground. That's what you're doing. Interesting. So I'm trying to look for a segue, but let's come to this point where you also spoke about mentorship. You also spoke about coaching, getting people to be coached. I also spoke about being comfortable with people that you lead, growing and looking beyond yourself as well. So one of the books that I read a long time back, the book is called 1 Minute Manager. I do not know if you are familiar with the book. It's written by Ken Blanchard, if I'm not wrong. 1 Minute Manager is the name of the book, in which he talks about the fact that good leaders lead people, full stop. Great leaders make other great leaders. And that's the difference between being a good leader and a great leader. Good leader executes whatever they want to do, whatever they want to achieve, gets achieved, all in a good way. But the great leaders, in the process of doing that, are also able to nurture better leaders as well. So I really like that part. And trying to kind of, connect it to your own learning journey. So I'm sure you've had your own mentors and coaches as well. So what is one leadership advice that you received which has held you in good stead, which has actually, been really, really impactful in your career personally as a leader?
I think listening is one very important thing which I realized during my SAP Master's program. The 3 seconds rule is also a very powerful learning.
So what is the 3 seconds rule?
3 seconds rule, we are all animals, right? And then there's a very little difference between animals and humans. Animals usually react from the lower part of the brain, right? And there is, by default, there is a fear, afraid, or flight. Okay, so
amygdala's response.
Correct. So the lower part. And if you allow your emotions or any input to come and settle down for 3 seconds, then this information shifts from here, lower part of the brain, to the upper part of the brain. And then you don't react, but you respond. And that's very important thing. And then I think many of the leaders, they regret many times that, did I shoot too early? Did I really read the situation? I think I should have understood a little bit more. I should have asked few more questions. And some of the information was anyways coming up. Did I interrupt someone? And then I had this bad habit, and let me acknowledge it and kind of accept this. So listening has been a big thing, and the 3 seconds rule has been a big thing, which has kind of really made an impact. My wife has been a great teacher, kind of great motivator to me. Myself and my wife, we have been on a very interesting spiritual journey. I used to drink everything. I used to eat everything. I used to do very interesting things before. But for last 4 years, we have been no meat, no liquor, and then trying to follow some of these spiritual practice, which I think make me more mindful. So that was another part of the recent leadership experience or recent leadership learning for myself, how I see myself changing in last 5 years. And this last 5 years have been very, very interesting. I'll not say transformational, but they have been very interesting. And I'm kind of going through that journey, and I'm still on my journey. People ask me, what has changed in you since you quit meat and since you quit liquor? And my weight, I think I'm still the same weight. I haven't lost. I didn't have enough to lose anyways before. My stamina has improved a little bit, but not too different. Maybe one thing which I sleep better. So those are all physical aspects, but the kind of mental aspects, I'm more mindful. I sleep better. I'm trying to control my reactions part, and that is kind of so related to reactions related to mindfulness. So very interesting journey. I think when I was moving on to this spiritual journey, I kind of sat down and then started asking this question on the purpose of life. Many people in their mid-career blues, they lose their track, and I think there is a lot of greed in the leadership, and then a lot of leaders are driven by profit. So, and then that is where overachieving their KPIs and maximizing the bonus remains a big part of their kind of leadership outcome, which I don't agree with. So I kind of asked myself that what's the purpose of life? And it's not that I have figured it out myself, but that is the question I keep asking myself, even today. So purpose of life, how would I measure? And then coming from the services background, that is where I found an answer, that serving people rather, can be, and it is inbuilt into my services background. So serving people was the easy part, and serving people is not only outside, serving within the team, serving at the job is the easiest answer I could find. And that is something which I'm trying to practice and follow. I'm quite sure it will change, and the answer will change in some time. But for now, that was one interesting part.
Interesting that you say that. So I was talking to a spiritual master some time back. I mean, I'm also on a spiritual journey, though I've never tasted liquor or never had any non-vegetarian food ever in my life. But still, I mean, on a spiritual journey as well. So one of the things that the master told me was that there are layers like onion within ourselves, and there are stages in our growth as a spiritual being. And at each stage, at every layer of the onion, the perspective or what you see and what you really see and what impact it has on you changes. While the object may be the same, you're seeing the same thing, but because the onion's layer has been peeled and because you've moved to a different level in your spiritual practice, what you see, the perspective changes. So the object remains the same, and the person who sees the object remains the same, but the perspective changes. And I think as leaders, this ability to shift perspectives, go to the level, to the level where you need to be, whether sometimes it requires you to go down, sometimes it requires you to go up. But this ability to shift perspectives is something that great leaders are capable of doing. And I personally strongly believe that leaders need to be philosophical, if not spiritual at least, because ultimately a lot of leadership comes or boils down to balancing things. Exactly. Balancing long term versus short term, balancing near term to short term, balancing intuition versus data, balancing bosses to balancing employees and what their needs and wants are. So, and in order for you to be the balance, and I feel that leaders are the fulcrum, so you move the fulcrum on one side and the balance completely shifts. So I think that is super important, and going on a spiritual journey or even a philosophical journey helps leaders achieve that balance. Unfortunately, as you said, a lot of times, a lot of leaders are driven by greed and by maximizing things rather than balancing things. And that is when organizations feel that, they become out of balance, and which means that, they could potentially, while in the short term, gain a lot of things, but in the long term, it always comes back to hurt them in one way or the other. Now, sorry for the going away on a different track. I'm pretty sure that as leaders, we also face a lot of challenges, right? So if you can share, what do you think are some of the maybe 1, 2, 3 of the biggest challenges that you face as a leader, or even you face other leaders around you as well, and how do you overcome them?
Very interesting question. And I think I was reading this report from Microsoft that since the advent of Team and Zoom, the Microsoft Team and Zoom, the average number of calls we all have at work have increased by 54% in last 2 years. So a lot of these conversations, and while this back to office thing is happening, but this team calls or Zoom calls have not gone away. So we imagine the 3 years or 5 years before, when Zoom was not there and team was not there, people will meet in person, or the meetings were set up. The number of people, another very alarming information which came in this Microsoft report is the average number of people on these team calls these days. Okay, so just go back in past, just 3 years back in past, and imagine the number of people you had in these meetings.
10, 15 people maybe.
Maximum. Nowadays, you have so many, and people who were not required to be in these virtual meetings, just to be felt that they are adding value, they ask some random questions. Sorry to say that. So because that is how we feel that, oh yeah, I'm here and I have to add value. There's so much distraction. So challenges, coming to the challenges, number one, distraction. We all say that multitasking is obvious, but it's not. Multitasking is a myth. It cannot happen. Especially in the virtual meetings, we are distracted. So this leads to, number one is the multitasking. Number two is so distraction, and then this productivity. So coming back to the Microsoft report, the number of meetings we have in a day, where do we have time for thinking and doing things? So that is the productivity. So I see the challenge for myself and team members is the taking control of our time and using that time for the productive things. What is most important. So what I'm trying to do with myself, and I'm trying to tell my team members also, that at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of the week, we must define the core things we must complete for our customers. Keep your customers first. Do your customer meetings first. And our internal meetings can take the second priority. So productivity is the biggest challenge. Distraction is the second thing. Then the other thing which I feel that being in a technology company, the learning part, many leaders, they feel that, okay, being the people leader, they don't need to know the technology part. And then that gap between the new generation and then these leaders can be very wide, and then that will stop you from connecting with them, and that gap will be there, and then it shows up in the conversation. And especially if leader is not used to listening, and listening is related to the learning as well. The lesser we listen, the lesser we learn, and the lesser we learn, the wider gap we create with our team members, especially if your team is kind of the variety of the age and then culture and then countries and languages. You can very easily disconnect with them, and you can very easily lose them. And then you can live in your own ivory tower them. And then, yeah, you are going in one direction and your team is going in a different direction. And then some of these things show up in your leadership trust score and all that. There is no trust then. So yeah, the challenges part, the pace of learning, I think it has become even more important, especially for leaders. It remains very, very important to stay updated and stay upgraded. The productivity part and distraction part, how do we make use of our time? And how do we keep time for thinking? And because if we are not thinking, we are running on a treadmill, right? And then you are not going anywhere. So you have to come out of treadmill, reboot, redecide where I have to go. And possibly you have to wear shoes and then start running somewhere else and then come out of treadmill at times. So this coming out of treadmill is like switching off your team calls and then start going somewhere else. So that was the other part. And then, yeah, these are my challenges. And how do I handle these challenges? I think people know I love cycling. I'm trying to have a right balance in terms of cycling, swimming, and running. Tomorrow, I'm having a team run of 10 kilometers with my team members. These things take out those never-ending, least productive threads running in your mind. And that is why having a healthy body is very important. Number one, it helps you take a break. We do take a lot of work to home. We do bring a lot of home to work. I'm not against having a work-life balance, but I'm not against having a work-life integration. Work-life balance is given, but work-life integration, and that is where the context switching is very important. So where do we stop thinking about the work? So even at home, we are thinking of work. Even at work, and then many times we are working from home, right? So where do we do the context switching? And that is where doing some of these physical activities help you break those mental threads running in your mind, and which can be very counterproductive. So I think that is where I find personally useful to go for a cycling, running, or swimming. And I feel that healthy body leads to healthy mind and vice versa. So you cannot just keep learning and keep growing your mind if your body is not very active.
Very, very well said. So I think that prompts me to a question that I had anyway had in my mind, which is I know that you do a lot of cycling, and if I'm not wrong, you do a complete trip of the island as well, circle trip of the island as well. So why is having a hobby like that? I mean, I don't know if you have any other hobbies. Maybe you can tell us about those as well. Why is it important to have something like that going in your life from a professional point as well? Because every leader that I talk to seems to have these hobbies going for them. So Atul said he runs and cycles and swims as well. I spoke to Gihan Pereira, and he said that he likes gardening. So I have a leader who says that he likes cooking. Someone said they like reading. Someone said that they like horse riding. So number one, according to you, why is this important to have something like this going? You partially answered this question by saying it helps you disconnect, but maybe it's time to go a little more deeper. And where do you find the time for this?
So first question, there are a lot of books around leadership from sports. I think having the healthy lifestyle and having some sports interest, it brings the discipline. It pushes you more. As with the age, we get into our comfort zone. And sports, having any hobby of cycling, running, swimming, and trying to be better than yesterday, it's very important. And I think that is the part of the character we build. And we don't settle with
where we are.
Yeah. So you keep trying to improve. And then you ask anyone who is in serious sports, and then be it cycling, running, anything, they do measure their time, right? So they are looking at their heartbeat, they are looking at their per kilometer speed, or I do the round the island, and how many kilometers am I taking, and what's the calorie burn, and maybe so a lot of things they track, and they try to become better next day. So, and at least if not with the age, if you're becoming better, what more could be. So and then I think in longer term leadership life perspective, the healthy body is very important. And then that behavior, that character you bring to the work also. You don't settle with obvious.
You're the same person, right?
You don't settle with yesterday. What you achieved yesterday, you're trying to change it. You're trying to get better in your personal life, in your sports life. You do the same thing, absolutely same thing at work also. You don't accept the results of yesterday today. You definitely want to beat that. So I think I have seen that. And then a lot of these sports superstars, I love the way they have the discipline, getting up in morning and then making sure that you have done so many steps. That discipline part is precious.
So some of these skills actually transfer irrespective of whether you are at work or whether you are at home. You're still the same person, so it transfers. So really, really nicely said. So you spoke about learning, you spoke about books as well. So that kind of wants me to ask you, what is your learning ritual? So how do you learn and stay up to date in order for you to kind of be effective at work as well as in your personal life?
So one thing which I'm trying to follow, Geeta. So I think that brings the balance, and every time I try to learn something that gives an answer, that why, the purpose of life, why I'm doing what I'm doing type. So it's very important. Otherwise, this learning can be very haphazard and it can be a burden and can be a point of agitation, mental agitation. So number one, knowing that what to learn and why to learn, and second part is I think there's a massive shift in the way people are learning in last 5 years since the onset of the social learning. I have not yet decided. I'm still undecided, and the jury is out whether the books are the right way of learning it. For me, doing is the right way of doing it. Right way of learning it. I come from the consulting background, knowing the product, trying it myself. I believe in demos. That is my way of learning, and everyone has a different way of learning. So till today, I'm not in consulting, but I still feel very, that is my way of learning. And I'm still very hands-on person. I don't have to configure products for my customer. I'm not into the kind of hands-on customer thing, but that is my way, and that is people feel that I'm leading by example, and I'm still today I'm comfortable in opening up a feature and showing it to the customer and showing it to my team members and kind of challenging them, and then they getting the challenges back from my customers and team members. That is one way of learning. So when you walk one extra step and when you walk a bit fast, and then when you tell your team members that see I'm here, and then catch up, and then you allow to stay back and look back and see where they are and what they have to show. There's a lot of learning. So I think my way of learning is shifting a bit from the books. I am reading. I'm a big follower of Gita, and I read that, and then a lot of things around Gita, I read that. So that's the spiritual learning and book learning coming. But the rest of the learning on the job is through doing it. And I do spend a lot of time before customer meetings in the preparation. I'm one, and that is the happiest moment of my learnings, when I prepare for the customer meetings. And I ask my team members also, never go unprepared. And that's the blessing, and that's the best opportunity for you to have to find out answers and do a bit of role play. I do a lot of preparation sessions and trial run sessions. Don't take our customers for granted, and then don't take our team members also for granted. For many of my one-on-one meetings with my team members, for 30 minutes meetings, you'll be amazed that I do block 45 minutes of time to prepare myself, that how can I give the best value to my team member when I have this one-on-one conversation. So I think this preparation before customer meetings and before team member meetings is very important. I think that is very important. And then when we start taking it for granted, that is where we stop learning, and that is where we stop going, and that is where we start going down.
Very interesting you say that. I remember some time back, I think last year, if I'm not wrong, I had written about people who have influenced me the most in my life, and both personal and professional. And one of those people that I write about was a a colleague and a schoolmate from school. So he's the one who recruited me in SAP, Srinivas Chakravarti. And he would tell me, he's a fabulous leader. I mean, a great individual, evolved spiritual being, if I may say so as well. He always told me that there are moments, even in athletes' life, right? So there are moments which are high impact moments. There are moments which are long-term impact moments. For example, all your practice, the amount of sincerity and the effort that you put in your practice shows up when it comes to your day of performance. So he used to tell me that everything that you do in terms of preparation, in terms of learning, is all your prep work. The moment of truth for any leader is every single interaction, and the one-on-one meeting is the culmination of everything else. It is in those one-on-one meetings that you show up as a leader, and the effectiveness of your leadership actually shows up there. Because it is, I know a lot of managers and a lot of leaders who do one-on-one meetings with their teams, sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, depending upon the role and the kind of people they have on their team. But none of them ever go prepared. Many of them, for example, never go prepared. So they just wing it. Whatever, no agenda, no clearly defined plan in terms of how do you engage the employee, what kind of conversations you want to have, what happened in the past, what does that inform your current meeting. And it is easy for them to reschedule the meetings, cancel some of those meetings. It's only my colleague, so I'll talk to him next week, and the next week doesn't happen. Each one of these shows how invested you are as a leader in their life. And if you show up truly invested, prepared, and wanting them to succeed, as Zig Ziglar used to say, right? He used to say, you can get anything in life you want as long as you help enough people get what they want in their lives. So that's probably the true test of leadership. And I'm really, really happy. I mean, I know that firsthand that, you do a lot of preparation for your meeting. So
yeah, I think the one catch here is, and I have been culprit of this mistake, when you prepare a lot, you want to speak all the time. So I think the right combination is the right preparation and start with listening. Okay. So be it customer, be it team member, first 5-10 minutes are definitely for them, and then let them define the agenda. What do they want to? I do have some of the business discussions to do where they are in terms of the KPIs and some of the customer achievements and all that, but that is secondary. Definitely start with listening. It's so difficult when you are so prepared to listen, and that is what I'm trying to overcome these days.
Yeah. So another challenge that could potentially be there for you to look out for is the fact that when you're so hands-on and you like doing things your own way. So the line between being hands-on and leading from the front and micromanaging is very thin.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that you're pretty self-aware, and when you're touching that line, but that's something that I have seen many managers who are hands-on and who like to do things fail as well. So that's something that just keep that in mind when doing that. So we are almost at time in terms of the time that we had for this conversation. So I would like to end this conversation as I do with all the other conversations that I have by asking you the 3 questions that I generally ask. Who is a leader that you admire and why?
I think some of these leaders have been my recent managers as well. I recall Jill Popelka. She was here in Singapore. She was the president of SuccessFactors. Beautiful feedback giving person. The true way of true art of coaching I learned from her. So before she will give the feedback, she will ask you, how do you think this session went? And that will make you think. So half of the feedback came from yourself. And that's a wonderful moment of reflection. And then she will add to the feedback. So the art of feedback and art of coaching came from her. The another manager which I admire is Michael Siosia. my previous manager. He used to say, lead with the hidden hand. So he believed in empowering and kind of enabling people so that they just do when they do the best when you are not around. So that was the another thing which I'm trying to copy and emulate. So these are two wonderful legends I can recall from the leadership.
Super. And I think if you have first-hand experience of such great leaders, that makes you so much, that makes it so much easier for you to incorporate some of these things. Also shows the impact that a leader can have. I don't know whether you've seen this, but if you start noticing this, you will find that strong leaders, right, good leaders, strong leaders, typically have this ripple effect, which means that the mannerisms that you have as a leader starts showing up in the people that you lead. The way you talk, the phrases that you use, the way you dress, the way you prepare, the way you write your emails, the language that you use, it starts seeping in the people that you tend to lead. Observe this, and I'm pretty sure you'll be surprised. I've been noticing this for the last 17 years, no, 20 years from my first boss. I learned this from my first boss. And since then, I've been noticing this. You'll be surprised at the impact that a leader can have, a good one for sure. And the same thing happens with the bad leaders as well. So their bad leadership characteristics starts seeping in to their teams. So, and that's why it is super dangerous to have a bad leader in any organization.
I was having this discussion with my wife, and I was telling my wife that as much as we protest our fathers, our parents, after some time we become exactly like our parents. And then we are busy protesting initially, and then after some time, unknowingly, you become them.
Yeah.
So yeah, you are so right. So right. These leaders and parents have so much influence on your life.
Yeah. So maybe, one thing that you think has had the most significant impact on your journey as a leader. It could be a book, it could be a moment of truth, it could be someone, a mentor, it could be whatever, a movie, maybe a sports metaphor, something that you think has had the most significant impact on you as a leader.
Many moments, I think.
Just pick one which you think was like sublime.
When I did recently, I did 160 kilometers ODEX biking. The way I prepared, I was in two minds. Can I do it? Will it be possible? I think the whole preparation part and then doing it, there were many moments where I felt like giving up, and it's too much. I can't do it. I just can't take it. But the kind of the
Resolve.
not giving up, and then this whole teamwork, I was not alone there. The way, and everyone, as I said, I'm kind of early sprinter, and then I'm a good finisher as well. I have a problem in the middle part,
the messy middle.
And then there were people who were late starters or slow starters, and the body has the energy. So so they were kind of dragging it towards the end. So the way we complemented each other, I think some of those leadership lessons we learn from these sports, they apply so much at work as well. That was the moment. Those were the moments of 12 hours, the absolute great feeling of giving up, but not giving up, and then someone else pulling you up, and then finishing the line and standing there after the 12 hours of long night, I'll say. Phenomenal. And I think some of those principles apply at work as well. We have very difficult moments at work when customers are difficult, situations are difficult, but we just don't give up, and then we keep playing on each other's strengths. So
super. So that brings us to the last question, which is the show is called Pushing Beyond the Obvious. So what is so obvious to you that people miss all the time and makes you go,
I think what I'm experiencing more is the listening part. We just don't use the mute button enough. That's such a powerful thing in our hands these days. Listening, being mindful, comprehending, and then so two things, if I have to say: listening and then responding, not reacting. So many people around in these large companies, it's easy to react without listening. which creates a lot of communication burden and mess. So I think I wish people listen more and responded rather than reacting.
Listen, think before you respond. Superb. So thank you so much, Pankaj, for spending time with me for the show. Lots of great learning. I think apart from the two that you said, one thing that I will take away from this conversation and try and implement in my life is the cycle of learning, which is, have an intention, act, reflect, and then continue the cycle. You may not have said it in these many words, but that's my takeaway from this conversation. So thank you so much. I'm pretty sure that people who either listen or watch this live or people who will listen to it later on will find a lot of value from this conversation.
Wonderful. Great reflection for me as well. I think these are great moments. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Really.
Super. Thank you.